Focused on Orange Farm, south of Johannesburg. A suspect in the murder of Nomvula Chenene has appeared in court today. Now, her lifeless body was discovered in a shallow grave in a shack in Orange Farm over the weekend. Now, Chenene is the sister of former Bafana midfielder Bennett Chenene. She was last seen in December last year. The case today remanded to early May, but the community wanting answers for what many are calling a hate crime. eNCA's Manqoba Mchunu visited Orange Farm today, and he joins us now. First of all, Manqoba, I mean, this is just such a horrific story. Talk to us, though, about what happened in court. What can you tell us about the suspect?
Well, Sally, it was a short appearance in court. In fact, it was his first appearance. The 34-year-old suspect that was making, of course, his appearance before the Serenity Magistrates Court. He has, of course, been charged with murder following that gruesome find that was made at a shack in Orange Farm over the weekend. What we know about this suspect, Sally, is that he was somebody that was renting that particular back room in one of the properties not far away from the Chenene homestead. In fact, it's just a few meters away, a few streets away from where the home of Nomvula Chenene was. And we understand that the incident had happened on the 10th of December. That's when she was last seen by her family members. Ever since, they've been searching for her and have not been able to find her up until this weekend, when in fact we understand the girlfriend of the alleged killer had gone to the police to give them information about a murder that had taken place back in December, saying that she believes the victim was Nomvula Chenene because of the clothing that had been described that she was wearing, and that's what led police to then go to this particular shack. They dug where she had pointed them and to find the body or the remains that are believed to be that of Nomvula Chenene. Of course, today it was a short appearance. The suspect choosing not to proceed with his bail bid, saying that he want not to continue with that. Of course, this amid angry community members that are really baying for blood, that have made it clear that should he be released, his life would be in danger. So the case was postponed to the 3rd of May, Sally, for further investigations and for him to be able to get a lawyer. But community members outside court were quite angry, Sally. They're saying that they feel that justice is letting them down because they want to see this particular suspect facing the full might of the law. There were many of the community members, gender activists, as well as members of the LGBTQI community that were there, and this is because Nomvula Chenene herself was a member of the LGBTQI community. She was a known lesbian in the community, somebody who really was, comfortable with herself, and, so her murder has really sent shockwaves throughout that community. And of course, the family at this particular point also still quite baffled. They're looking for answers and, trying to piece together how this unfortunate incident could have happened. And of course, they're saying, Sally, that they believe also that the woman or the girlfriend of this particular suspect should also face a jail time, because they say she was there when they were searching for Nomvula Chenene. She was among the community members that had gone to try and find her when she was missing, and still she said nothing about what she had known at the time. So the family saying that they're still hoping for answers and of course justice. But earlier on, I did speak to one of the family members who was in court, and this is what she had to say.
They were good to then she was out with friends and she never returned home. And again to us said as a yeti or as the yes.
And so you had suspicions that something bad might have happened to her?
Yes. And because she's lesbian, and we know how old you want to target, even though you want to target, keep on our own kivat. Helaka suspect the horror. Even while in the onsa pelana, who's a la.
So you went to look for her?
Yes. Family limpagat. Omo badli, magatola.
Yeah, and it's interesting, if this is indeed a hate crime motivated over potentially the fact that she was a lesbian. it just again calls into question our constitution, which is one of the most progressive in the world, and yet we do still see members of the lesbian and gay community victimized like this. Completely tragic. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about the suspect. Has his name been released? Are we able to explain what his potential connection to the victim was?
Well, what we know, Sally, from the court papers is that this suspect had stayed in Orange Farm. His name was Sizwe Buthelezi, but of course that's also still quite questionable because community members say that he used different names. You know, at some point he was in Ndlovu, at some point he was called Malema, so they really do not know, you know, his real identity. In fact, to understand that that was one of the issues that still has to be investigated by the officials, his real identity, because some of the community members are telling us that he's actually not from the country. He's from outside of South Africa, possibly from Mozambique, and they're saying that his identity has still not been confirmed. We heard that fingerprints have been taken now to try and really identify his real identity, but of course that still forms part of the investigation. But we also know, Sally, that in terms of the investigation itself, the DNA samples have been taken from family members, and those DNA samples are then going to also be analyzed just to ensure that the remains that were found at that shallow grave are those of Nomvula Chenene. But what we did manage to you know, establish was that her brother, Bennett Chenene, who is a former Bafana star, was there on the scene on Saturday. He was there to identify the remains, and of course from the clothing that she had been wearing at the time, he was able to identify the clothing as well as a gold tooth that Nomvula Chenene had on her. And of course at this particular point the family are saying that they're quite sure that it's their daughter. However, they're still waiting to hear as far as DNA results are concerned, and the investigations of course are continuing at this stage. To understand that possibly the girlfriend, the one who informed the police, could possibly become a state witness in this particular matter. But at this point, this is just what we're hearing from the family members who of course at this particular point are quite devastated, and they're hoping for some sort of justice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so incredibly tragic, so very sad. And while you were talking to us, we were playing the visuals of where her body was found, inside a shack in this shallow grave, and just the indignity of being left there for the past 3 months. I know that you've also spoken to activists who are outside court today. They are absolutely convinced that this was a crime motivated by hatred for her because she was a lesbian. Let's just take a listen to what one of them had to say.
Without any hesitation, it is definitely a hate crime for the mere fact that she was coming from where she was coming from having fun with her friends, and then that person found an opportunity because of she knew quite well that Nomvula is one of our lesbian sisters. That's why he took advantage of murdering her. The issue of hate crimes in our country is still escalating, and more especially when you look into Valley, we are always crying. It's less of our sisters and brothers that we have been burying. They've been murdered in terms of hate crime. So indeed, South Africa is still having a long way to go to fight this issue of hate crimes upon LGBTI people.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. As you said, the matter is back in court in May. Thank you very much for that update. That's eNCA's Manqoba Mchunu just giving us some more information about that court case today. Nomvula Chenene, she is the sister of former Bafana star Bennett Chenene. Her body identified by him over the weekend in that shallow grave in the shack of this man, 34-year-old suspect Sizwe Buthelezi. But of course, as Manqoba is saying, it's not sure at this point if it is his real name. He has a number of aliases, but that matter back in court in May.